Welcome, everyone, back to the Ethereal podcast. I'm your host, Alex.
Hey, I'm Ian.
Thank you for joining us for another episode. So, this week we switched the format, and Dean's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, so on a weekly basis, we're going to try to, just give you a general overview of what we talked about last week. And in the meantime, we're going to try to sprinkle things in a little bit with a commercial break to kind of give you a breather from what we were talking about, especially if we, try to dive into a deep topic or something like that. So we wanted to just kind of break it up a little bit and give you some variety in content. So yeah, we're really excited about the newer format and looking forward to it. So
Yeah,
with that,
we really hope y'all enjoy this, and please let us know if you have any other suggestions or if you want us to go back. We're
definitely.
here. We're all ears. So, anyways, with that, let's go into the quote of the week. So, quote of the week is "Every generation needs a new revolution," and this was from Thomas Jefferson.
That is definitely a good precursor to what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Just before we talk about our subject, we are going to tell you a little bit about today. And at the time of recording, it's November 24th, 2021.
Yeah, so the year's wrapping up for most of us, and I realize it's only 5 weeks roughly before the end of the year, but just keep in mind that New Year's resolutions aren't quite up yet, right? So if you there's anything out there that you want to try to finish up, don't give up. Keep at it. Good for you if you've kept it up this long.
And I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you have any New Year's resolutions this year?
Well, there's always the generic ones like my health. I can improve my health or improve my, the something to do with social status. I don't know. But I try to, work on exercise because, for a long time, I think we might have touched on this last week, but, I really hadn't focused on tuning or fine tuning my health for a long time. And it didn't, it didn't dawn on me, and this is sad. It didn't dawn on me until recently that, oh yeah, eating better is a good idea. So yeah, I've off and on committed to that New Year's resolution of trying to get healthier, but I need to get better next year for sure. But how about you, man? What have you had to work on this year as far as New Year's resolutions?
I'm gonna keep it real. I didn't really try any New Year's resolutions because, like, not because they're corny, but because I feel like every year I try and it just doesn't happen. And I didn't want to be like that person that was like, "New year, new me." But I did have some goals, and I will say I have not accomplished any of them due to coronavirus. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. I will say
I'm
one
gonna
of
interrupt.
my
I'm gonna interrupt you right there. I mean, you've traveled. That's a huge one. That like you've
that is true,
seen a
especially
lot
during the
more.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've seen a lot of the world and opened up, your to new ideas and new experiences. So I'm gonna defend you a little bit there.
Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Man, shout out my co-host. But for sure, I would say getting an internship this year was like actually a New Year's goal or like New Year's resolution from 2020. So I completed one that was like 2 years ago. So we're doing good.
Awesome.
But anyways, along with that, let's get into our topic of the week. So as part of our weekly homework, the theme was technology and the generational divide. So
Right.
tell them what they had to listen to, what they had to discover.
So, there's obviously no doubt among many of us that technology has been a huge divider in not only previous generations but future generations. So, what we wanted you and what we committed to rating for last week was the Velt, and there was two forms of media that we took a look at this past week, which was the Velt, which is a short story, and the song "The Velt" by Dead Mouse. who was inspired, as you might imagine, by the short story. And finally, we revisited it, or if you hadn't seen it before, Blade Runner 2049. So that is, all three of those carry very similar, tones across the board. But yeah, we're gonna just take a look and take a dive right into the themes of this, and hopefully we can try to rationalize, like, and kind of understand where we're at this point in the current era, if you will. So, all
For
right,
sure.
yeah. So you want to just go over
I,
like a brief overview of kind of the topic at hand?
sure. I did have a quick question. Do you remember who wrote the Velt?
Uh, no.
No, no, it's all
I,
good. It's all
I
good.
remember the
Uh,
story. I read the story. That is
no, no, you're
not a
good.
good way to start.
Ray Bradbury, and he also wrote. I'm sure you know this. It's let me just tell you, it's one of my favorite books. Just because of like I really enjoy like dystopian futures. Like for example, I really enjoy Brave New World in 1984, and Ray Bradbury wrote Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, really? Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah,
Oh, so he really enjoyed the idea of things going wrong.
yeah. He might have been a pessimist. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hey, I mean, you could argue it's a realist, So
Hmm.
yeah, that's true.
But
Cool.
before we go into each of the medias, going along with the theme, I wanted to kind of talk about just what the terms and like kind of definitions of like technology and the generational divide or generational gap. So currently, I'm still in college and I'm in a class like it's basically about ethics when it comes to technology, society, and I'm really enjoying this class. Surprisingly, I thought I wouldn't, but it's been very interesting. And in one of the readings, it defines technology as three possible outcomes: technology as a liberator, technology as a threat, and
Hmm.
technology as an instrument of power. And ultimately, like the author and me as well sided with technology as an instrument, and in most cases, it's used as power. But inside of this chapter, they define technology as the application of organized knowledge to practical tasks by ordered systems of people and machines. Now that's a lot to kind of digest, but
Right.
it's a really interesting definition because a lot of the times we think of technology as machine, like just what we see, but not the the background of it. Like how did this piece of machinery come into fruition? Like what is the science behind it? What is the knowledge that was put to work?
Sure.
And so I thought that was really interesting. And then the second part of the theme, the generational divide or generational gap, it was defined by Wikipedia, which never allowed to use Wikipedia in school, but for our use case, I'm totally fine with it. But it's the difference of opinions between one generation and another regarding belief, politics, and values. So
Yeah.
that's just a little bit of kind of a preface for our discussion. So, anyways,
Right.
let's get into it. So, tell me, with the song and the short story, did
So
you see it coming? What happened?
So I thought I did. I thought if you're talking about the short story, I thought I kind of saw the twist a little bit. So I
Hmm.
guess first of all, I guess you want to just summarize the Velt a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially, if you look back on the Velt, it's a really fascinating short story that takes place sometime in the near future. We don't know really when. But you have this seemingly nuclear family, right? So a mom and a dad, and a daughter and a son, so a family of four. But they're clearly dysfunctional in the story. There's this concept of a nursery, and what just kind of threw me was the idea that not only was it a virtual reality room, but the kids could think about whatever they wanted, and the parents spoiled them to such a degree that they didn't really care what the kids thought. So when the parents went into the nursery, they saw this pack of lions in the Serengeti, which is called the veldt, which really had no idea that that was even a real word. But what they saw really disturbed them, because what these kids conjured up was these lions killing their prey. And obviously, they're little kids. You don't really want them to think such dark thoughts at such a young age, right? So they hired a psychologist or psychiatrist. I can't remember which one, but they hired this psychiatrist to essentially examine what was going on. And he was advising them to just shut off the machinery, just disconnect from technology. Your children are essentially don't care about you anymore, which is obviously a scary thought. And it was pretty obvious, like when they turned off this nursery, that the kids just lost it. They went berserk. They didn't even take into account their parents. What the author was trying to get across was this nursery became the parent, right? It became the source
Mhm.
of these kids' lives, and they didn't really care about their actual providers who gave this technology to them. So, fast forward to the end, and you come to find out that these parents, to back up a little bit, these parents were hearing screams in the nursery, also human screams, and they didn't know where it was coming from. The kids pushed their parents into the nursery, locked them in, and we come to find out the lions eat the parents, which I didn't really understand how real it got until then. Uh, but the parents were eaten, and then the screams, it turns out, were theirs. So it just turned extremely dark really quick. And I have to say, Alex, I had no idea that that was coming, that part. So yeah, that's
And I
essentially
felt like the streaming part was like such a crazy such a crazy event because it symbolized so much. Like not only that, like if this was a trial before a jury, like that would be premeditated murder. Like they were fantasizing about it. Like it's crazy to think that like Bradbury like put that in there
right,
and used it as like a vehicle for our understanding for and then like to use it as a twist as well at the end. Like
right.
that got me. I was like, dang.
Yeah, and apparently, like there was a show about it. I saw at least on YouTube. I didn't watch it, but I saw that there was additional, visual novels about it too. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, like that's such a terrifying thought. Obviously, that's, I guess you could consider extremely like, oh, well, that would never happen in this day and age. Like, yeah, we have phones, yeah, we have social media, but I don't know, man. Like if you attach especially impressionable kids, right? Because they're sponges.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. It could lead to some really unfortunate consequences in the future if you give them that access to that kind of tech. Um, and
And I
I
feel like access to this technology is like what's kind of the main theme of like developed and how it corresponds to generational divide. Like for example, I remember whenever I was a kid and I got Pokemon Emerald, I believe. Yeah, Pokemon Emerald.
mhm,
And I was playing that on my Game Boy to the point where I didn't want to do anything else in life. Like my mom would try to bring me to go get like some Italian pizza and I wouldn't get out of the car because I wanted to keep playing it. And
right,
like having that whenever it was taken away from me, like it's very interesting how attached children get to
mhm,
technology, and I think it's especially worse in today, and I feel like it'll continue to exponentially increase because, for example, I know like a lot of parents today. There's the term tablet kids, which is just like kids that are just glued to a screen, just always playing on the tablet and whatnot. And I feel like
yeah,
that's just a digital pacifier in today's age. I feel like that's very dangerous because, like, imagine growing up and being exposed to so much, and not ever like really experiencing like the crazy world of nature. Like, I feel like
yeah,
it would be so depressing as a kid to find something like Roblox or like Call of Duty to be the coolest thing in the world, and not to even ever understand nature or appreciate the wild world we live in. Like there's
Yeah.
so much out there, and we whittle it down to just a little screen that kids are like obsessed with.
Yeah. And side note, I, it amazes me to this day that Roblox is still a thing. Like it's gone on. Like I played that when I was a kid. Like just as
Same,
a side
same.
note.
I played I and funny enough, it debuted as an IPO, I think about 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
they people are investing, and I
Yeah.
understand why. Because this is something that's scary. This wasn't included in the material for the week, but Ready Player One. So like the idea of metaverse. So Roblox is creating a
Mm,
metaverse for kids, which is especially scary because I mean,
yeah. That's been a
given
myth.
YouTube Kids like that platform, there's already enough terrible things going on there.
Oh
Imagine
yeah.
like what kind of games are on there. Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
just gonna be like dumbed down versions of Call of Duty, Fortnite, just violence and competition and dominance.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point about the metaverse. But before we jump into that, did you want to talk at all about the also the Velt by Dead Mouse? Do you want to touch on that?
Sure. Yeah. So I learned about this because I like to produce music, and I had seen a YouTube clip where Dead Mouse was actually streaming and looking through music and producing live, and a user submitted this music and this like vocals over some music, and Dead Mouse loved it and ran with it. So like I thought that was like that's such a cool like fan
Yeah.
and feature reaction, and like I really enjoyed that. So and not to mention developed I really think expresses such a cool duality in music because for
Mhm.
example I took a pill in Ibiza. Those two are like they express duality by the music being like really happy, really cool, and really expressive and animated, while the lyrics are very depressing and just negative and not necessarily explicit ways, but like
Yeah.
between the lines per se.
Yeah, and and I obviously if you listen to the whole song, which is a long song, don't get me wrong, but it's based on the, like you said, the lyrics of the Velt, or sorry, the words of the
Hmm.
Velt. And it's almost an irony, right? Because Dead Mouse is obviously known for house music, for electronic music, and to kind of incorporate the very thing that may be kind of pulling us apart. It almost creates this like level of sadness to it that I don't know. I just, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really appreciated that the idea of how technology could be splitting generations apart, splitting the human condition apart, if you will.
Yeah,
I mean, and incorporating that into electronic music, which is brilliant in my opinion. But um, again,
I agree.
maybe that wasn't his intention, but that's what I got from it at the very least. So it's really cool. So yeah, so I want to backtrack a little bit, if you don't mind, to the idea of the metaverse, because obviously that's a
Sure.
big ticket item right now. I don't know. Did you watch the demos that I think Microsoft and Facebook put out like the other day? The Zuck basically came out with a giant spiel about the metaverse and how it's going to change the world and change how we think and live and all that.
I didn't, but and the reason why is it's scary because
Yeah.
that Ready Player One dystopia, it's I mean it's coming whether we like it or not. It truly is, and
So do you think
to
so?
think that
Do you think it will be, or
I
do you
truly
think
think
it's a
so.
do you think it's a gimmick? That's the debate right now. Do you think it's a gimmick, or do you think it's actually going to influence us for the next generation?
Well, let's think about it like this. Would you rather play paintball in real life, or would you rather play Call of Duty in a simulated reality?
If it was good enough, I probably would do the simulated reality. I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I guess I think if you read like the comment sections and read the feedback
Mhm.
all these people got, they're like, oh, I'd never do something like that. I would never be a part of this technology. Like it's obviously going to take us over. It's going to ruin our social lives, and it's already bad as it is. And I'm like, well, I don't know.
About that.
I don't know. Are you sure? Like if it's cheap enough, like if it's a few $100s and you have access to especially if like they incorporate like feeling into
Oh,
the
haptic feedback suits,
haptic.
they're coming.
Exactly. So like eventually there'll be enough
Hmm.
people out there, in my opinion, who don't want anything to do with reality, not just because technology is cool, but because it's so much easier to not work on real life relationships because it's scary, right? It's scary to try to
Yeah.
put yourself out there. So why not just stay at home? Like it's easier. And I think that's
And
good. And I think that goes back all the way
mhm.
to that short story. Maybe, you won't have kids necessarily wanting to kill their parents all the time, but they'll want to kill their social life if it means that they don't have to try to interact in the real one, right? So
Mhm. And
yeah,
I think that the metaverse as like a digital space for all of these type of interactions, communication, information, it really does prey on like the most basic and fundamental human properties where we want to be
yeah,
connected with people, we want to engage with people. And it's, in my opinion, it's not like necessarily a choice, because like take for example Facebook. I have a Facebook just because, like, sometimes I need to know about people's birthdays and get reminded, or sometimes I'm looking for
yeah,
like something like a very specific picture or like a very specific purpose, and all the integration into Facebook is just going to carry on the same way into the metaverse, because it's not about like your choice, like whether you want to do it or not. It's about like, hey, all of my friends are on here. This is something that's being done. It's gonna be subconscious coercion, in my opinion, to move
sure.
the needle from just like first dimensional to two dimensional to three dimensional, and then eventually even like 4D, like with all the crazy innovations that will come within the metaverse. It's gonna happen, and I
Yeah.
think that I'm not interested in Facebook being having the key to that door.
Yeah, and before we jump into the generational divide, sorry, I keep backtracking a little bit, but I wanted to, I guess, give you the throw a question out there about how quickly it seems like because you and I both, I mean, we both grew up in a time where we didn't know anything besides the internet, right? Like I have never known a
Mhm.
time without the internet, and I don't think you have either. But there at least was a period where you could kind of distance yourself from it. Like social media wasn't always around when I was little. Like
Mhm.
Facebook got really big when I was around 8 or 9, but I was too young, I couldn't get on it, right? But what I'm noticing now, and maybe this is just I'm getting old, I don't know, but does it feel like to you that you age quicker online than you do offline, if that makes sense? Like you feel like you get outmoded if you don't try to keep up with what's happening on the internet, on socials, on whatever. Does that question make sense?
Yes, that makes sense, and I would certainly agree. Like, take for example, TikTok is a prime. It's the most common social media amongst like the younger generations,
Right.
and there are trends on there that make no sense to me,
Hmm.
and honestly, it just, I don't get some of the things that are on there, and that's just, it's kind of crazy. That's just the kids evolving with the time.
Yeah.
They're
Like
making
I
up their own jokes, their own culture, and we can't keep up with it. But for the most part, I do think that even with Facebook and YouTube, like the things that we're like known to, even on there, it's always going to be taken by the next generation and morphed into whatever it is. And
sure.
because of that, yeah, I guess digitally I've aged super fast
Yeah,
because
and
of
that
just
exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Like your digital age, not necessarily your physical one, I mean, like we're
Mhm.
we're in our 20s. Like I'm not trying to debate, to get all such physio or philosophical with that. I just mean like, yeah, on the digital space, like really have no idea anymore what is considered cool, on because I don't use TikTok. I don't want to use TikTok. I don't want to use what I mean, Vine was like kind of like TikTok, I guess, but I don't know. I used Vine, but no one cares about Vine anymore. Like I overheard. Okay, I'm
It's
not
like
even.
a distant memory.
It's like a distant memory, exactly. So like
Hmm.
that's what I'm getting at. Like you can't ever uh be satisfied with
Hmm.
the latest and greatest, because it always changes and you don't know what's next. And by the time you do figure out what's next, you're too old. you're, you're, you're
No,
like,
I completely agree. It's
yeah,
like you can consume everything right now, and then within a minute there will be
exactly.
in almost lifetimes worth of content uploaded to YouTube, TikTok. It makes no sense to actually keep up with the times, because it's like a clout chasing. Like there's
Sure.
that you always want to get the next collaboration, the next Louis Vuitton release, the next exclusive item, but
Yep.
there's always going to be something more, and it'll get to a point where you don't even understand it. Like I don't understand fashion at the moment, and I don't think I have before, and it's going to keep on getting more and more exacerbated, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think this kind of spills over into our next topic, about generational divide. Wouldn't you agree?
Hmm.
Nice segue
I
there a
agree.
little
I agree.
bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so if you want, I've been talking long enough, so you go for it.
Sure. I want to talk a little bit about Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, for sure.
So I I think that that was a very interesting movie whenever it comes to generational divides, because there was more layers to it. There was different, there was more division. And so something I learned like growing up is like division is the devil. It's always bad to find differences whenever it comes to humanity, because we want to be closer. We want a global community.
Yeah.
We want the human civilization, not Africa or the Chinese government, or the citizens of Alaska, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so I think with Blade Runner 2049, we were shown division at a different scale that we're not used to, except it's almost familiar to what we've done in the past, which is there's a slave population that doesn't have a soul because they are not born, and they are completely different than the humans that are presented in the film, but only because they were designed and created, not born. And even within that class of people, this class of people was known as the replicants. There was a new generation and an old generation, and the premise of the movie, not sorry, not the premise, but the plot of the movie is that the newer replicants are hunting down and killing the old replicants
Right.
because they are dangerous to the system. And I think that with our generational divide that we are experiencing right now,
Hmm.
we almost have something like that, but ideologically. And and I'm sure you're familiar with the term boomer.
Oh yeah.
And
No,
and
no,
that
I've
stems
never heard
from
of that.
it
Yeah.
stems from a baby boomer, right? And this generation, and
Mm.
it's used like in social media and in real life to discount their opinions, because what we do is, and I've fallen victim to this too, we label them as a boomer, we discredit them because of their old age, or like back in my day, like they'll say something like that, we discredit them because of the differences and the circumstances of right now, today. And then we just we completely discount their opinions overall. And I feel like whenever we label people as boomers, we we are just inadvertently increasing the generational gap, and kind of prescribing to this idea of not wanting to even consider
Yeah.
the past generations ideas or their livelihood, because it's not ours, because we live in the now, and they're gonna die off. And I mean, there's some legitimate ideas that I think that have to do with like the past generations that should be changed, but we're using the term boomer and the generational divide to kind of be a vehicle for some of these. That, and I think that that's it's kind of sad, because if anything, it's more advantageous to understand where they're coming from and to
Mhm.
see their point of view, and then to also invite them into your own, and to also help them understand like it. I mean, imagine our grandparents trying to get onto TikTok and making one of those dance videos. It'd be so funny and crazy.
Right.
And
And I guess to jump on that too, like I don't know how old your grandparents are. My grandparents are boomers, by definition. And I don't know, like the thing is, they thought like that generation thought that they were the revolutionaries. They thought they were the ones that were going to change the
mhm,
world, that they had the fresh ideas, the new ideas, which is like I think just like the ultimate irony, in my opinion, because their grandkids, or in some cases their kids, if they had kids late, um, absolutely have like no, they don't think that at all about that generation. Um, and like so the Zoomers, and I would say millennials too, I guess, if you want to get technical, like they think that they are the new wave, the ultimate, like they have the right ideas. Because they have the access to the latest technology uh, at the time, which is of course the internet. So like I don't know, I think I don't know. I think we are cultivating we've cultivated this ideology, the younger generations on the internet, that we have it figured out, because we all are we dude, I don't know about you, but it seems like we all think alike on the internet to a degree. Like I don't see a lot of variety in personality anymore. And I'm a
mhm.
victim, and I'm, well, not victim, but I'm guilty of this too, where I want to think the way everyone else thinks online. I don't want to be against the grain. So if everyone thinks that they're revolutionaries, then of course they're going to discredit older people who don't care as much about social media, except Facebook. That's a that's a big exception. But it's such a weird phenomenon going on, because both generations thought that they had the fresh ideas, right? And
Yeah.
we're going to grow old too, and I guarantee you, our kids and our grandkids are going to think that we are completely outdated.
No, I can totally see what you're saying, and I'd like to even take it a step further. So like our like the same way we think about the boomers, it'll be maybe 70 years, and they'll look back and they'll be like, what what is this, and what were they thinking? Like how could they live
Yeah,
like this? And
right.
I mean, there's certain things that just like make no sense in the future, because there's advancements, and it's crazy to think that like less than 200 years ago, cocaine was like used in small doses to treat people. Like it was
Right.
medically prescribed. Like it's
Yeah.
just, as we grow more advanced and we progress as the human race, we typically just want to like look back and think like, wow, those people were stupid. How could they have like lived like that?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to think about context and the time, and especially right now with all of the politics going on, and
Sure.
like big tech and whatnot. it's it's very frustrating to see people that are like going into like becoming grandfathers and deciding our future, because they don't understand the technology, and they don't see it the same way we do. But I feel like it's also really important to respect their point of views, because especially with boomers, like they lived through stuff that like we won't probably know in our whole entire lifetimes. Like
Mhm.
it's crazy to think that not even like less than 100 years ago there was like World War II, and then my dad and like I'm sure your dad too, like they lived through like so many crazy times, like the hippies, like the disco, like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
it's not even
exactly.
that far away, like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
I yeah, and on top of that, uh, yeah, it's so easy to just discredit older generations for not understanding things, but as if we actually get what life is about too, like I would I think that's just such a narcissistic way of looking at things. I know that word is overused, don't get me wrong, but that I don't know. I don't. I think it's dangerous to become so self-absorbed and to assume that we got it all figured out. Um, to such a degree where we just like ignore what older people think, like boomers, if you will. Like I get that their way of thinking may be outdated in some cases, especially with how they perceive the world. Because I mean, obviously, the internet connected us all together, right? So our perspectives are probably so much different than what boomers think because it's a lot easier to build up your life. Back then, I think because you didn't have to like deal with the world if you didn't want to because it wasn't at your fingertips. Like you could just ignore what another country thought or another state thought even, right?
Mhm.
All that being said though, I mean, I think it's just such a bad idea to just ignore what older folks think. It's you got to have a balance somewhere, and I'm not sure what it is, but you can't just
And
ignore
I
them.
mean it's hard, like it
Yeah,
truly is difficult because you don't want to, it's like explaining to a rock what an apple tastes like. It's like how do you catch them up to speed, you know?
yeah,
And and something that like I think that our generation really needs to understand is that the internet, what we see on the internet really doesn't correspond to reality as much as we think,
no, not at
because
all.
it's crazy to like it's crazy to see all this stuff on the internet and then to walk outside and realize like that news doesn't affect me where I am,
Yeah,
or in some cases like this movement doesn't even exist where I am. Like there's a lot going on the internet that just doesn't correspond to reality, like whether it's by location or whether it's by other factors. It's just
yeah,
really
definitely.
interesting to realize that what you see on the internet is not exactly what's going on in reality.
Yeah, and yeah, what I don't know. I've rarely used Twitter because Twitter is just nuts. I mean, that's just an understatement. Come on. But every time I see like a trend or a hashtag that gets spread around or like a movement of some kind online, don't do you ever get the impression that it's not about the movement, but it's about you and how you feel and like how you're wanting to project how yourself out there, like look at me, look how amazing I am, look how I want to change the
Yes.
world. That level, to me, it's just a giant like narcissism circle. It's a giant wheel that just won't keep spinning of narcissism. And I'm like, I I always get that impression whenever I see a political trend or something online, because are you really making a difference if you're just spreading awareness? Like, come on.
Sure. And I funny enough, the younger generations have actually created a term for this. It's called virtue signaling. And
Oh yeah, yeah, virtue
I
signaling.
and and it's crazy, like because we we have so much more responsibility, I think, than the previous generation for housekeeping online. Like we have to keep our digital profiles up to date and whatnot. And
Sure.
as a younger teenager, I felt like I would even become prey to wanting to spread these awareness messages, because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily about the awareness message. It's about showing that you believe in this and that you agree and want to be a part of this type of community. that believes in a movement,
Yeah.
and that could, like, that false connection of promoting something but not actually doing any action in real life is
Yeah.
just kind of sad, because that just shows you like where's the connection, where
Definitely.
does where does the internet correlate to reality. And I think that that's something we need to consider a lot, especially whenever you see something that you really dislike, like in a YouTube comments or something like that. It's just like,
Yeah.
these are literally just some zeros and ones in a server far
Right.
away that does not even matter in my life or correlate to what I see in real life.
Yeah, you can't treat people like people online. You can't visually, you can't sense them. So you treat them like
Hmm.
objects. You can't treat them like people. Um, I mean, I know that sounds bad, but it's hard to, obviously you and me talking right now, that's different, but like in comment sections on posts, I mean, do you ever like actually think of a person as a person when you're like reading comments or something like that?
I
It's
always
hard.
just see their reference, like whether it's their username, their ID number, whatever it might be for the website. But regardless of, like, like, of all this internet stuff, it's I think the biggest divide between our generation and the generations before us is this online internet
Sure.
and how we perceive the world.
Sure. Definitely.
That's my opinion on the biggest change.
Yeah. And I think patience is something that most of us have forgotten to have, myself included. Like my attention span, I just growing up with internet, like, with I'm guilty of this, like on Facebook, on Instagram, Snap, whatever. I don't care. I had all those things and I've since then kind of distanced myself from it, trying to anyway. My attention span's like that of a goldfish, like half the time, man. It's like so bad. Um, and I think a lot of that is just this constant reassurance that, oh, I'm special. I need others to see how great I am. And Yeah, it's such a dangerous slope, man. I've had to work on that for sure. So
I have a question. Do you think, in this kind of like technology centered economic market, do you
mhm.
think that whenever we look back on our previous generations, for example, like let's say our great great grandfather, if
Mhm.
they do you think that they would be inherently different people if they had the internet?
Yes, 100%. Because let me explain. Your personality is like exaggerated online. Like I don't care who
Hmm.
you are or what kind of like things you're into, you're gonna find a group online that thinks the same way you do, and that's not always a good thing. So like, let's say you're introverted. I don't know, right? You're going to find a group of people that are so proud of being introverted that they hate people who are social, right? If that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
whatever negative and positive things you have as a person in you, what are, from your background, from your childhood, whatever personality traits you've picked up, um, it's gonna be exaggerated online, so it'll affect you in real life. So if you're, just naturally more introverted, you could become a shut-in. And I see that a lot in a lot of places online where people just have given up and just always talk about how much they hate going outside, how much they hate being around people. Um, and don't get me wrong, I get anxiety from being in a bunch of crowds or something like that in an unfamiliar place, but it's sorry. So to answer your question, 100%, I think they'd be different people. I think they would become whatever um, personality they uh, have built online. I think it would be reflected in the real world. I know I have.
Hmm.
I know it's influenced me somewhat. I'm sure. You know.
For
Uh,
sure. And what's interesting is, like, with the next generation, how the internet will shape them as human beings, like as themselves. Because
Right.
I mean, it's crazy to think like all of the past, like all of my past, it sums up to me now, but I've only like experienced the internet. I mean, technically speaking, because I'm younger than you, I've experienced the internet more than you, but maybe
Hmm.
not necessarily like time online and whatnot. But I think that it has certainly influenced and kind of shaped me as a person. And
Sure.
if if I would change more over the course of time, like if I would become like if I were three different people, could you say that I was the same person over a course of time on the internet? That and maybe I'm not explaining this well. Maybe let me put it like this. Like three different points in time. Like if I was 20, if I was 40, and then if I was 60, like I wonder how different these people would be, and if you didn't know, so if they could be, if you could guess that they were all the same person over the course of like the same person just at different time periods with the internet.
I mean, I think they would be drastically different people because just like take someone in like academics, for example, like from
Mm-hmm.
1940, I don't know. They could build a little bubble for themselves. If they were like, let's say like in engineering or something, I don't know, and they were just naturally just like to be alone. They just like to do their own work and research and do whatever and go home. But with, if you were born, let's say in 2000, or, and you grew up completely online, which naturally people who are, not as socially gifted, gravitate to because it's a relief, it's an escape, right? I think that kind of person would definitely distance himself and just be, and be gravitate towards communities online to influence his opinion, his or her personality, like all that stuff. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think they totally be different people. And I'm not sure, I don't know if it's always for the worse, but it sure seems like it's always for the worse. uh,
I hope that like the future generations don't have to rely on some online profile to find themselves,
yeah,
to get their sense of being. Because
sure.
I for sure have already seen the influence that it's taken on my life. And I just and I've only been alive and haven't like had that much time to like long term experience the internet. And so it's just scary to think.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, man. Um, well, so I think this is a good time to introduce our commercial break.
Sure, let's go. Let's cut to commercial.
Let's cut to commercial. Let's go. Uh,
So I'll go ahead and introduce what we're gonna be doing for this commercial break. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with the TV show that is similar to the name. Uh, are you smarter than a sixth grader? So I'm going to be asking you, be asking you a question, and you can ask me for some options, multiple choice, or you can just outright guess.
okay.
But if you don't get it right, I'm not sure what's going
Yeah, I
to
was like, what's the
happen.
what's the consequence?
I
uh,
think we'll decide some stuff later.
okay,
But
cool.
let's go ahead. Do you want to start, or would you like me to start?
I'll start.
That
Why
is
not?
to yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Sure. All right. So I
Oh
because
boy.
I'm so up to date and I'm trendy and whatnot. Who wrote Oliver Twist? We have Kanye,
Oliver Twist.
we have Robert Louis Stevenson, we have Charles Dickens, and we have Mark Twain.
Oh, Charles. It's got to be Charles Dickinson or Mark Twain. Now,
Ooh, ooh.
oh, hold on. Repeat some of the names again.
All right. So we have the obvious choice, which I mean I would go with this one. Kanye, we
Hmm.
have Robert Louis Stevenson, we have Charles Dickens, and we have Mark Twain.
Jeez, I have no clue because Oliver Twist, it sounds like it would be something old,
Oh, it's it.
but
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I don't know how old that could be. I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's not Mark Twain or Kanye West. It might be Charles Dickinson. Jeez, I'm gonna go with Charles
It's
Dickinson.
Dickens, sir. It's Dickens
Oh,
for
sorry,
it's
Charles
Dickens.
Dickens.
Yeah. So which one did you pick? Sorry, I interrupted.
Charles Dickens.
Hey, you got it right.
Oh, okay, let's go.
I mean, yeah, that's good process of elimination there. That's SAT strats. All right.
Exactly.
All right. All right. Hit me with it. What do you got?
So, what was the name of the last queen of France? You have Cleopatra, you have Jeanne d'Arc, you have Mary Antoinette, and you have Beyonce.
Okay. So definitely not Slay Queen. It's definitely not your girl, Beyonce. It's not what was the first one?
Cleopatra.
No, it's not Cleopatra.
Yeah, like I need to think about just for a second.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's not. Did you say Jean d'Arc?
Jeanne d'Arc.
Jean, like Joan of Arc?
Oh crap.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not her. It's whoever that other lady was, Marie Antoinette. It's got to be Marie Antoinette.
Wait.
Yeah, okay. I was like, now Joan of Arc is like ancient, like she's from like a long time ago, BC or something. I don't know. It's like that was a lot. So yeah, all right, cool. Well, I guess we're smarter than sixth graders.
For legal reasons.
For legal reasons, we're smarter than sixth graders.
Sixth grade.
Well, so that was our little commercial break.
Yeah. So now we'll get into a kind of an event that's coming up. It's tomorrow, November 25th, and for y'all listening, it might be in the past, but it's Thanksgiving, and so I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving because it's sadly enough it's become controversial.
Mhm.
It's being taken down and replaced with Columbus Day in some parts. And
Oh,
I
really?
thought I just
I
thought
didn't
it'd
know
be
that.
interesting to talk about. Oh yeah. um oh, you know what? I'm wrong. Actually, I like to go back. I am so wrong. It is being Columbus Day was being replaced by Native Heritage Day. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
no, I heard about that. Okay, I was like, I thought people didn't like Columbus anymore. It's like, okay.
No, my bad, my bad. So,
So,
anyways, I thought we would, talk about Thanksgiving and just what it means to us because
mhm.
it's a really interesting holiday, and I find it very special because it's right in between Halloween and Christmas, and I think that's really important as a seasonal change because as we get closer to winter, a lot of things it's a very difficult time if you were a pilgrim or if you were living in the past because the crops would be reduced. There wouldn't be certain things you could eat. You would lose a lot of the things that made your livelihood better.
Mhm.
And especially during the winter, we, you know, it's a struggle. And I think that Thanksgiving's a really interesting holiday because it kind of culminates a lot of different things together. For example, like there's the religious aspect of it, and there's also the history aspect of it, and then on top of that, it came from America, and it hasn't spread across the world. Like for example, in France, they don't have Thanksgiving, and a lot of
Yep.
other places. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the wiki article on it, just to
Sure.
give y'all some So Thanksgiving is a national holiday celebrated on various dates in the United States, Canada, etc. It began as a day of giving thanks and sacrifice for the blessings of the harvest in the preceding year. Similarly, named festival holidays occur in Germany and Japan. Thanksgiving is celebrated on the second Monday of October in Canada and on the fourth Thursday of November in the United States and around the same part of the year in other places. Although Thanksgiving has historical roots and religious and cultural traditions, it has long been celebrated as a secular holiday as well. So it's pretty interesting how Thanksgiving has only spread to certain places. Like,
Yeah.
for example, Liberia, that's on the list for where it is celebrated.
Which kind of I think that kind of makes sense, sort of, because I think the US created Liberia, right?
I'm not so sure. How about this one? Grenada.
Like in the Caribbean? Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Oh, okay, that's a new one on me. I thought it was only a US thing. You're enlightening me here. I was like, is it the same? Is it the same day, same kind of food and stuff, or is it just like
Various dates, I believe,
okay?
and different food. But tell you know what? Tell me, how does it work in your family? Is it the typical white picket fence American Thanksgiving, or do y'all have like your own traditions?
Um, so yeah, no, so what we act, it's funny you bring that up. We usually have turkey and dressing or stuffing depending on where you live. And
Hmm.
just like the traditional stuff, like we're pretty uh I don't know what the right word would be, but traditional, I guess, with that. But we do have like this thing that we started like when I was a little, I guess, where we like write what we're thankful for as a family, like on this part cloth, like in Sharpie, year after
Hmm.
year, and like over the years we've built up this huge like wall of notes on this cloth. So it's just a little something that I guess we do, but it's a good reminder of what that holiday is all about. So I always thought that
Very
was kind of
nice.
cool. So how about you, man? What did you guys do, or did you guys really do the whole turkey, corn or cranberry sauce and all
Corn
that
dressing.
corn dressing? Yeah,
It's pretty interesting. I have my parents are divorced, so I have two different sides that I celebrate with. So on one side, it's super traditional. We have the turkey, all of that. Then we have the Macy's Day Parade, and we also
yeah,
have the football game that we watch. And on the other side, it's like we took Thanksgiving and then we made it Indian. We have, instead of turkey, we have lamb biryani, chicken tikka masala, and some other food.
sounds really
And
good.
it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. And we also watched the game, but we don't necessarily do the Macy's Day Parade. And I think the wiki article mentions this at the very end, but it's been secularized and kind of, in my opinion, a good way, because in order to be around family and to be thankful for things, it doesn't need to be religious. I
No,
think that
no,
I think that it's just really good in general how we actually take the time to celebrate with family and to enjoy what we have and what we've been given for the rest of the year. And I think that it's also really cool in a religious manner, because in Christmas, generally you're excited for gifts that you have been expecting or wanting,
right.
and for Thanksgiving, you're kind of looking back and being thankful. So it's like it's two sides of a coin, in my opinion.
I'm all with you on that. Like, yeah, especially because it's towards the end of the year and you probably are just tired, and you don't want to think too much about anyone else. Maybe maybe work's getting you down or school's getting you down, depending on where you're at in life. And yeah, just bringing it all back and realizing what's important. I mean, that's what it's all about, man. Like, there's no like what other point is there in life, really? I mean, that's what it's all about. So I'm with you.
I feel like without like without looking back at the year, you can't really appreciate. Like
No,
I don't.
no.
If it's always disappointing to like to think that you haven't done enough because it's like at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But whenever you consider like the the rest of the year and how you've actually been changed by the seasons and what's gone on in your life, I think that brings a layer of joy in your life.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So speaking of joys in our life, you ready for another commercial break already?
Oh yeah,
All
let's
right.
go into it.
Okay. So I was kind of excited about this one. I mean it's a I guess in the grand scheme of things it's a little thing, but uh words that just kind of get on your nerves a little bit after a while, either because they're overused or they're just weird. I don't know. I liked this segment. You came up with this segment, and I really like the idea of it. So I'm curious what yours is first, selfishly.
Sure, I can go ahead. So, for words I wish I didn't know, my word is cattywampus. It is
I don't know.
it is spelled
Okay.
CATTYWAMPUS. Tell me,
Catty.
what do you think cattywampus means?
Dude. That sounds like some old English like nursery rhyme, like people in petticoats made it up. I have no
What
idea.
Whenever I first heard it, I thought it was like one of those imaginary animals like the chupacabra or something. But
Yeah,
I
it
will go
sounds
ahead
like
and tell
a
you.
yeah, it sounds like a one of those like cryptid things that you see on the History Channel, like one of those like Bigfoot or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know what the
Finding
show is.
cattywampus.
Yeah, Finding Cattywampus. Yeah, exactly.
So, this is a term that you will find in the Midland and Southern United States. It is
Okay.
referring to something that is in disarray, that is askew, or something that isn't directly across from something. For example, a post office might be cattywampus from the library. You might actually know this word by the terms catty corner, kitty corner, or
Oh,
catawampus.
oh, okay. Okay, well, I've heard those words before. Okay. I I grew up in the South and you did too, so I never heard that.
I've heard catty corner. I
I've
never
heard
heard cattywampus.
I've heard catty. Sure, I've heard catty corner before, but yeah, nope, nope. That's a weird one. Okay, so mine is nowhere near as off center as that one. I don't know. This is just more of a word that just gets on my
As
nerves.
cattywampus?
No, not at all. It's not nowhere near that out there. Um, it's the word pretentious. I
Pretentious.
Pretentious. I mean, obviously, I'm sure most of us know what that is, and that's the point. Like, it's so overused
Hmm.
to describe someone who has an ego or is just arrogant that I'm so sick of people using the word pretentious. It's so overused. It just like it hurts me a little bit every like each time I hear it. I'm like, because I use it too, and that's what and that's what irritates me the most. I think I'm like, oh man, that dude's so pretentious. Like he's over there just like taking selfies at work. Like, what is he doing? Like, I don't know.
I I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most people that say that someone's pretentious, they are inadvertently pretentious because of the way they're judging them and using the
Exactly.
word.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to describe it, how I feel about that word. So it's not as cool of a word as cattywampus though. I want to just I just want to drop that. I want to drop that word in like at a cashier or something, to a cashier or something like at the grocery store. Like, yo, is that Walmart competing with you guys over there? I know this is Target. I know it's a forbidden word, but though it's kind of cattywampus, man.
You might make them faint. They might not know what to do.
Exactly. Uh, well, I have
All
no
right,
idea.
so
Yeah, I have no idea how this segues into the the next discussion we want to talk about, but I'm really
Here's
excited about
our
this
current
one.
event.
I- I'm excited about this current event that's on the news right now. Do you mind if I jump in?
Yes,
Cool.
I think this one is just for you because it's up your alley.
Yeah, man. I mean, space is cool. What can I say? Um, so in the news recently, if you haven't heard, NASA has come up with a plan to try to come up with a way to deflect an asteroid. You've probably heard, or seen movies and talks about, asteroids. What happens if they decide to strike the Earth, and what are we going to do about it? So they've come up with a mission called the DART mission that is going to be thrust into a test asteroid, I guess, if you want to call it that. And the whole point of it is to steer it off course, to make the thing go. And it's such a cool idea. I mean, on the surface, like, and of course, and I think this is what we're going to talk about next. There are implications with that because, okay, great, like we're coming up with a way to hopefully defend ourselves from debris or from asteroids or whatever, right? But if that ever becomes common to where we have space defense, what's how's that going to work politically? Like, because inevitably that's what it's going to become, right? So I'm curious about your thoughts on that first.
First, I'd like to say, "Big Rock Go Boom,"
But
but
big rock go boom. It's true.
but I think that space has been really the test of humans coming together as one race. For example, the International Space Station, like there's a lot of trust that goes into sharing a facility like that with all of its vulnerabilities and among several different nations. And
Right.
I think that defense for Earth will come in a very good and productive manner, but it's going to require a lot of communication and a lot of hoops to jump through because in order to have this type of technology in space, it it's dangerous in itself because imagine that there is not an asteroid that is used like there's not an asteroid that is coming, but this
Mhm.
is used to attack an enemy satellite or an enemy spacecraft instead.
Yep. And like if we designate someone as like defending Earth from not just like ourselves, but from
Mhm.
whatever, right? Like, who's to say a country should be in charge of it, right? Like, who makes that call? And it's an interesting thought because I don't think we're there yet, from what I understand. I mean, we're not at that point, at least
Mhm.
publicly. Ooh, but um, yeah, like who's going to be in charge? The U.S., China, Russia? I mean, like who's going to make those judgment calls? So I'm curious how that's going to go down because I don't know if I can have an educated opinion on that yet. Honestly, like I don't know.
Here, how about this? How about we backtrack a little bit? What I think is really interesting is whenever we landed on the moon, and not only America, but like whenever humans continually landed on the moon. And y- what's really interesting is that I, whenever I heard, like obviously this happened after I was born and whatnot, but whenever I learned that no country tried to claim land or no one tried to like make their own territory, that was very interesting to me because I always imagined like the same type of politics of geography and government would start to bleed into space and especially the moon because the moon is such a close resource and it could be used territory there could be used as an asset whether it's for defense or for advanced technologies. And that didn't happen. Like, I mean, as far as I know, like no one is claiming like, hey, this territory is specifically for our country. And I think that it's interesting because it relates this, and I don't know if it's the same reason or what exactly is going on behind the scenes, but it's like, take for example, Antarctica.
Mhm.
several countries have already claimed the land at while it's melting. In That's not happening in space, and I feel like whenever we get to like a full-fledged program of defense, then some claims will be made, because we already have Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos competing in space for satellite coverage of Wi-Fi, and
Yeah,
they're already fighting over like who gets to put their satellites where, because you in space, and especially in orbit, you have to work together to make sure that you don't collide or destroy other satellites. And I think that it's really important that whenever we get to defense technologies for Earth, that the collaboration doesn't just end there, that we need to like continually collaborate as we build more and more space infrastructure.
sure. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time because I don't think, yeah, I don't know if the moon, as far as I know anyway, is as accessible yet. Like it's not, we don't have the means to like efficiently just transport stuff in a very short amount of time yet, and to mine things yet from the moon. So I think once it gets to that point, we're going to see a lot more people or countries trying to claim spots on the moon. So I'm curious. Yeah, it'll be interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited about the initial mission. I just want to see what happens. I just want to I want to know if we can actually make, what'd you say, the big rock go boom.
Exactly, yeah. And here's a question: do you think that they are starting this type of technology and this research too early, or do you think that there's a concern and they are
Ooh,
going as fast as they can?
ooh, yeah. It could be a conspiracy. Yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, why now? Yeah, like, do they think something's coming? I haven't looked into it yet. I Maybe they don't want to scare people. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, it could be like
And
a test.
why would they start conspiracy? Let me put my conspiracy hat on real quick. So whenever I was in school, there was this teacher, and I'm not gonna say his name, but he was super cool. Like he was the coolest guy that we knew, and he was teaching at the school just so his kid could go there for free. Like he didn't. He was so smart. He had had an amazing career,
Yeah.
and like he had done some really cool stuff. And he always he always jokingly said like, "I'll just you better leave it up while you can, because 2050 come around, there's gonna be something that's too big to destroy that's gonna hit us." And I don't know, man.
Hmm.
He knew some things. He had worked on some projects, and I don't know. It's
Okay.
interesting to think that like there might be time that we're fighting in this mission.
Wow. Okay. I did not look into that part.
It's
Oh
just
man.
a conspiracy. I have no clue, but
I'll be
might have
50.
just been a joke.
I'll be like 50, uh almost like a little over 50 by then. So maybe I'll have lived it up. Who knows?
Anyways, let's get to our final commercial break
All right.
before we continue on to our homework. So this next one is called Food for Thought. Now I didn't really give Ian a clear description of what he should do here, but it's food for thought. That's what it is. So you want to go ahead and hit me with your food for thought?
Yeah, I'll hit you. I'll hit you with them food. That food for thought. All right. So this is not an original idea that I came up with, for the record, but take into consideration Finland, if you will. All right.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Finland has a very small population for how large of a country it is. It's got like 5.5 million people, and
Mm-hmm.
the world population is estimated to be roughly 7.89 billion, something like that. But there's a margin for error, and that margin for error is greater than the population of Finland if you subtract it. So it's like over 6 million. So if you think about it, there's a possibility Finland may not exist.
Oh crap.
There's a possibility Finland may not even exist.
Man,
So
that's crazy to think though, because of the scale. Like even a margin of error that's so minute
yeah,
could just wipe a whole entire
yeah,
country
exactly. I mean,
of
that could
people.
wipe out Houston, you know. So
Jeez.
yeah, man. So that's my food for thought.
Well, my food for thought is a little bit more lighthearted than that.
Good, good.
My
Balance it
food for
out.
thought is I'm just gonna say it and I'm gonna let you react. There are more nipples than there are human beings.
Yes, yes, yes. They're like as useless as mine are. I can safely say there are more of my nips than me.
This is
Yep.
basic human anatomy.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate I appreciate the facts that you give me.
So that's been your food for the thought, and now we're gonna get into homework.
All right.
So homework for the next episode. So do you want to hit them with the theme?
Yeah. So the next theme that we're going to talk about next podcast is diamond and scarcity. With that, like just like last time, we have some media that we want you to go over with us if you want. So Alex, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Before we go into the media, I just wanted to kind of clarify what this topic is really about. So, as you know, diamonds are one of the hardest materials in terms of gemstones, and it's also a very rare item, and it's been kind of the pinnacle of a lot, like most, like the Hope Diamond per se. You cannot
Mhm.
even like figure out how much that thing could be worth. And so diamonds are kind of representative of scarcity in that we we don't necessarily need diamonds, but as a social construct for wedding rings and whatnot, they are used and they are very desired, and there is a high demand for them. And so I think what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to use diamonds as a very interesting economic phenomenon and compare it to scarcity, and also talk about the what's really going on behind the scenes, like how are these mined and stuff like that. I think it'd be a really interesting topic to see diamonds not as necessarily a precious gemstone, but to see it as a vehicle for scarcity.
Mhm. All
And
right.
so I'll go ahead and tell you what you're going to listen to this week if you want to follow along. You're going to listen to Blood Diamond by Kanye West, and then after that, you're going to read another short story. And the short story is The Necklace. It's by Guy du Maupassant. And then finally, you can watch Blood Diamond. And this is it came out in 2006, but it's actually a pretty good movie, and it features some pretty important actors. I don't know if you know Leonardo DiCaprio, but
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, never heard of
he
him.
is in it.
Yeah.
And there's also Jennifer Connelly, or Jennifer Connelly, I think.
Yeah. Connolly. Yeah.
Connelly. And also, if you have enough time, Uncut Gems is also a really good movie. You should check that
Yes.
out too.
100%. Yeah.
And so let's introduce kind of something at the end that we didn't do in the past, and I think we want y'all to really become better human beings, and that I feel like a good way would be a challenge. So the challenge of the week is going to be that the challenge of the week is that you want to be less judgmental. And by doing that, we encourage you to find something positive, such as a compliment or a nice thought about the coworkers you interact with day to day.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great segue. And I mean, I think we all need to work on that, myself included, 100%. And keep it real, man. We will see you next time. See y'all.
See y'all at the next episode.